Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for joining our call today. Our webinar today for CLARiTI is focused on study startup, but in particular, we're focused on how to be intentional about our inclusion process. And we'll go over our inclusion core thoughts with you today. Our purpose here is to not just describe some of the plans we have, but to get your feedback and to answer your questions and to learn from the successes that you're having at your site. I'm Sterling Johnson. I'm one of the PIs of the CLARiTI study, and I'm joined today by several of our other PIs, Dr. Mormino, Dr. Okonkwo, and Dr. Rivera-Mindt, and several others, and we'll be talking to you today. Let's go on to the next slide. To talk about our agenda, we'll give some brief updates. We'll try to be very brief here and then focus the majority of our time on the inclusion core processes, and then try to have plenty of time to have a Q&A with you as we go along. Also, we want to remind you of the Q&A box down below in Zoom, not the chat function. Use the Q&A function if you can, so that we can record your comments and your questions and get those documented and addressed. Okay, let's go to the next slide. This is where we are here in early 24. We have IRB and FDA approval here in Q1 of 24. In Q2, we will be hopefully onboarding our first participants. First, we have to onboard our sites and do the subaward process, and that is all the work that is happening right now. We're hoping that our enrollment will occur through the rest of this year, 24, also 25, and into 26 to get to our goal of 2,000 participants. That may take us through the end of 26, and then we'll be working on follow-up 2 years after baseline, and we hope that our follow-up will be completed in 2029. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Just wanted to put CLARiTI in the context of everything that is happening in the ADRC system, and just a big shout out to the National Alzheimer's Coordinating Center, who is supporting the CLARiTI project. We're designed intentionally to be synonymous with SCAN. We want to be compatible with everything that's happening with NECRAD and the standard blood collection protocol. And we want to be in a position to be integratable with all the genetics and all of the other data that is coming into the NAC database, so that these data will be these participants will be deeply phenotyped and help us make discoveries that wouldn't be possible without the ADRC system and the data that is provided here. Along the way, as you see here in the middle, in the NAC data integration and harmonization, each of the centers will have its own ADRC portal to receive results of this study and other studies that NAC is managing, and so those will be of use to you, as well as the harmonized version that will be available to researchers around the globe. Well, let's go on to the next slide, and I'll turn it over to my colleague, Erin Chin, who is the overall project lead for CLARiTI.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much, Sterling. So since we last met in February at our last webinar, we have received IND approval for our single IND that was approved by the FDA on March 6th. So Lori is going to put a link in the chat to our study may proceed letter from the FDA. So the sites that will be referencing this IND will likely need that letter to submit to your local IRB. Just as a reminder, this IND will cover tracers MK, NAV, and PI that will be delivered to sites. It will also cover any local manufacturing of MK if it's under Lantheus purview. So our two CLARiTI project coordinators, Kelsey and Hunja, have started to email all of the sites to confirm the radioligand choices, delivery address, contact information for tracers. If it's necessary, they will also collect a signed 1572 from your site investigator. We'll use this information to get all of the statements of work updated with all of the radioligand companies. Next slide, please. And then I just wanted to go over the site readiness checklist. So again, there's going to be a link in the chat to our site readiness checklist. So those of you that we've already met with during our site initiation meetings, you have already heard about the site readiness checklist. This is going to be a snapshot here that we're going to send to all sites on a regular basis. So the team at NAC have created this really nice RegCap database for us. As you work through that site readiness checklist with your project coordinators, Kelsey and Hunja, they will update this on their end, on the back end. And so all the sites will be able to see where they are in relation to all the other sites. So as you can see here, we've got our site surveys that have been disseminated. I see that there's already been a couple sites that have already submitted the inclusion survey that just went out on Monday. So that's fantastic. Many of these are blank. They'll get that those updated as your sites work through that site readiness checklist. Next slide. Thank you. And then just an update on the subaward. So the scope of work, we've received many requests from sites about the scope of work. That will be disseminated to sites in the next few weeks. The team at NAC is just finishing up the paperwork that will be disseminated to the sites for the subaward. So next steps, sites will receive communication from NAC to begin collecting the documentation to initiate that subaward process. And then there will also be a link in the chat to our last webinar where Heather, our program manager from the NAC team, really goes in depth about the subaward process. But here's just one of the slides that we did want to share with you. So as your sites are working on that site readiness checklist, we're going to be rolling out those subawards in waves. So we are going to start with Wisconsin and Stanford as our two admin sites with Dr. Johnson and Dr. Mormino, just to get everything, make sure the process goes smoothly for all subsequent sites. So your sites will be hearing from us in the next couple of months to get that subaward process up and running. And next slide, please. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Beth Mormino, who's going to introduce our Inclusion Core co-leads. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Erin. So it's my pleasure to introduce Drs. Monica Rivera-Mindt and Ozioma Okonkwo. These are the leaders of the CLARiTI Inclusion Core. Both are also involved with ongoing inclusion efforts in the ADNI study. So Dr. Rivera-Mindt is a professor at Fordham University. She also holds a joint appointment in neurology and at psychiatry at Mount Sinai. She is a community-based brain health equity researcher, primarily focused on cultural neuroscience, health inequities, and cognitive aging in Latinx, Black, and other culturally diverse populations. Dr. Okonkwo is a professor at the University of Wisconsin. His research program focuses on modifiable and non-modifiable risk factors for cognitive decline and dementia in clinically unimpaired older adults. Overlaid on this research program are investigations of health inequalities and how these impact disease risk. So it's my pleasure to introduce the Inclusion Core, and we're excited to hear from you today. Thank you.
Thanks, Beth.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having us here today. It's so nice to be here. Ozioma, what do you think?
I think so too. Let's rock this.
Let's do it. So this is an overview of what we'll be discussing today. And again, it's really wonderful to be with all of you. We're really excited to be representing the Inclusion Core and be part of CLARiTI. So as you see, we'll briefly be going over ADRD inequities, talking about an overview of our core, community engaged research methodology, our plans for inclusion engagement, a quick overview of FAQs, and then we really want to make sure we have enough time for questions and comments. So next slide, please. And I believe I'm going to do this slide, right? Ozioma?
Yes.
Yes. So before we get started with all of the nitty-gritty details, we just want to take a moment to just recenter all of us to remind ourselves why this work is important and why the Inclusion Core is a key component of CLARiTI. As you know, brain health inequities are quite significant in Alzheimer's and related dementias. For instance, Black and Latinx individuals are up to twice as likely to develop ADRDs compared to non-Latinx whites. Adults, they also have younger age of onset, according to some research, and some research also suggests that they have greater severity of initial symptoms, cognitive symptoms. And if we take a step back and think about kind of the broader implications of where we're at this intersection of a more or an increasingly diverse U.S. population and ADRD health inequities, it's really important to highlight that if current trends continue, that by the end of this decade, which is only 6 years away now, by 2030, which I cannot believe that's only 6 years away, Latinx and Black African Americans are going to make up nearly 40%. So almost half of the over 8 million American families affected by Alzheimer's and related dementias, which is significant. Next slide, please. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yep. All right, so this section is just going to present an overview of the Inclusion Core. To begin with, here are the milestones that the core is going to be and the core is charged with. The primary one, as you know, is for us to increase the inclusion and engagement of persons from underrepresented groups. And for CLARiTI, the mandate that the Inclusion Core has from the NIH is that there's going to be at least 25% of individuals from underrepresented groups in CLARiTI. And we're going to speak more as to what constitutes URPs in CLARiTI. And the milestone 2 is just as important for achieving milestone 1, and that is our focus on collaboration and communication with all of you, beginning with working with the different cores in CLARiTI, particularly the admin and the disclosure cores. But then with your local ADRC centers, we want to form very close partnerships with your outreach cores, and there's going to be more information on that to come. So these are the main milestones of the Inclusion Core. Next slide, please. And while the 25% or more inclusion rate might sound daunting to some of us or all of us, there's actually some promise that this is very attainable. So this graph here is data that we had collected when the CLARiTI grant was going in about 4 years ago now. That's wild. Right. When the grant was still being prepped, we kind of did a survey of all of you all at your different ADRCs to just let us know the proportion of participants from different ethno-racial groups at your ADRC clinical course. And the summary here is what you send back to us. So if you just focus on the very top graph, it appears that about 75% or so of all the participants across the ADRCs are non-Latinx whites. And so the other 25% or so are individuals who report some form of version of being represented in biomedical research. Now, of course, the breakdown varies from center to center as the bottom graph shows. But overall, it appears that we are actually well positioned to meet our 25% or more inclusion rates for CLARiTI. Next slide, please. All right, as you already heard, this core is co-led by Monica and myself. And on this slide are the other members currently of our core. There's Dr. Desiree Bird, who is in Queens and New York. There's Dr. Vanessa Guzman, who's at Mount Sinai. There's Dr. Charles Winden at UCSF. And then we have our amazing cast of staff, Dr. Adeyinka Ajayi at Mount Sinai, Miss Ann Buffington in Wisconsin, and Miss Eva Schulte, Wisconsin also. And again, we are continuing to hire staff, but these are the current folks who make up the Inclusion Core at this point. Next slide. All right, this is a little bit more of an outlay of layout of the structure of the inclusion core and the different elements of the work that we're going to be doing. You probably cannot see my cursor, but I was trying to highlight at the very top the Community Science Partnership Board. That is going to be a very key piece of what the inclusion core does. And this board is not an advisory group, it's not a focus group. They are truly a central piece of the inclusion core. They are made up of members of the community. Some of them are participants in the ADRCs, and then scientists like some of us on this call. And together with this group, we are going to this group is going to play a key role in making sure that all the work that the inclusion core and CLARiTI as a whole is doing are grounded in community engaged research approaches and are culturally informed and so forth. So this group is not just there to give us advice and then walk away and we choose to implement or not. They actually, are key stakeholders in everything CLARiTI and the inclusion core is going to be doing. And obviously, the inclusion core is a part of the CLARiTI and leadership. So we're going to be looking to Drs. Johnson and Mormino and the other MPIs and heads of the other cores to provide guidance and support for the mission of the inclusion core. At the bottom then of this schema are the different elements of what the inclusion core is going to be about. Again, all our work is going to be really based in community engaged and research approaches. We are going to be working with all of the different ADRCs to provide training and support to make sure that the work that you guys are doing at your respective ADRCs also are grounded in cultural competence and community engaged and research approaches. The Inclusion Core is also going to launch a massive digital ad campaign to support the work that the ADRCs are going to be doing. And we already I showed you some members of our Inclusion Core team. And these are all individuals who have expertise in brain health and inequity, and also in recruitment science. In addition, then there's going to be two groups of staff that are going to play a key role in the inclusion program of CLARiTI. The one set of staff are the community research navigators, and then the other set are the community research liaisons. And there's going to be more information on these two groups of people coming up. We want to emphasize again that the Inclusion Core is going to be looking to have very close and strategic partnerships with the ORE cores of the different ADRCs, your all cores. And part of what the community research liaisons who are going to be at the local ADRCs are going to be focused on is building community partnerships, both locally and also in union with our community science partnership boards nationally as well. Again, all of this work is going to truly be driven by a sense of true partnerships between those in science and those in the community. All right, next slide, please. So again, this slide here lays out the two key types of staff that are going to form a part of the Inclusion Core and the inclusion efforts for CLARiTI. On the left are the community research navigators, the CRNs. These staff are going to be housed within the Inclusion Core itself. And they're mostly going to be virtual or remote employees, though some of them are also going to be local to either Wisconsin or New York, where Monica and I both have our appointments. And they are going to truly be focused on how we can support the ADRC all core staff and also the participants in getting through every part of the CLARiTI study. That is really what their key goal is going to be, to make sure that any participant who comes in this study stays and is able to complete all the study and procedures till the very end. And then on the right side then are the CRLs, the community research liaisons. These are staff that are going to be based within the local ADRCs themselves. And the primary focus of this staff is to form that bridge between the ADRCs and the local communities in which the ADRCs are housed. And that is how they are going to really maximize efforts to provide inclusion and community engaged and research for the ADRCs. All right, so that is basically how these two types of staff are distinguished. Next slide, please. You may have received an email a couple of days ago with a survey sent out by NAC asking for you to please share with us your current plans, procedures, and processes for inclusion at the local ADRCs. It will be extremely helpful to us if you and your staff and your PIs can please complete those surveys, because that is what would help inform us on how we, the Inclusion Corps, can support you to be effective and successful at your ADRCs. I believe the deadline for the survey is April 15th, but of course, the sooner that one can get it in, that would be greatly appreciated. Next slide, please. All right, and my co-lead takes over at this point.
Great, thank you so much, Ozioma. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about our methodology, which is a culturally informed, community engaged research approach. Next slide, please. So essentially, this approach is an evidence-based approach. And we believe that this is pivotal for the successful inclusion and engagement of individuals from underincluded or underrepresented populations into research, particularly into CLARiTI. And this is a more intensive approach. It requires more intensive personal contacts and relationship building and genuine, true community partnership. Next slide, next slide. And in being able to provide this greater personal connection, this more supported community partnership, our community research navigators, our CRNs, and our community research liaisons are going to be able to really help us deploy this approach at the national scale for CLARiTI across all of the different ADRC sites to be successful in our mission of successfully enrolling at least 25% individuals from underincluded or underrepresented populations. Next slide, please. And for those of you who aren't familiar with this more culturally informed, community engaged research approach, here's a list of the key principles. I'm not going to read every single one of them out. Y'all can read them, but really this approach is predicated on transparency, power sharing, bi-directional learning, true community partnership at all phases, and really promoting empowerment and focusing on a strength-based resiliency model. This is cyclical and iterative work, which is why it's so important for us to work closely with a community science partnership board to help move us forward, and of course to work very closely with ORCOR folks to help us understand what's going on on the ground in close partnership, so we can make sure to be successful across all of our sites. And the last point I also want to note is how important it is to share findings and knowledge gained to all partners. So that's why we're really interested in also partnering with the Disclosure Corps, which we'll talk a bit about later, and really working on those materials and really leading with that give back. And I think that's the last slide for this section. I also want to note that I see that there are a couple of questions in the chat, but I'm going to focus on the presentation, and hopefully we can address those during the Q&A. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right, so now we're going to share our inclusion and engagement plans with your next slide, please. So as we already said, the key mandate of the Inclusion Corps is to ensure not just the recruitment, but also the engagement of at least 25% of all CLARiTI and participants to be from a URP background. And that is defined or operationalized along three dimensions. Either ethnicity and race, or socioeconomic status, or being from a rural community. So those are the three dimensions on which we are going to categorize individuals as meeting or qualifying as an underrepresented individual. And again, the approach that we're going to take here is truly going to be culturally informed and driven by sound community engaged research methods. A few key areas that the Inclusion Core is going to be focused on is providing all the centers with tailored inclusion and engagement materials. And then we're going to, again, work closely with you, driven by the responses we get from the surveys, to provide your team with training and consulting to help you be successful in this exercise. As mentioned, our community research liaisons are going to truly be your boots on the ground to help build that very critical and important links between the ADRCs and the communities in which these ADRCs are housed. Whereas our CRNs, our navigators, are those who are going to provide support to your study team and also to participants to make sure that anybody who enrolls in CLARiTI is carried through all the way to the end zone. We mentioned already, the CSPB is going to be a critical part of everything that CLARiTI does. Again, they're going to have equal voice, equal votes in all the processes and materials and other processes that CLARiTI and the Inclusion Core attempts to launch. And then, as CLARiTI and rolls out, the Inclusion Core is going to keep an eye on how all of us are doing in partnership with y'all to make sure that, at every, stage of CLARiTI unfolding, that we are continuing to meet our commitment to NIH. And you probably may have heard this on other calls, but in addition to CLARiTI providing each center with this and community research liaison, CLARiTI is also, and the Inclusion Core are making available to each ADRC funds up to $10,000 every year to support the work that all of you are going to be doing in building very important and strategic relationships with the communities in which the ADRCs are housed. Again, we have our email address at the bottom of the screen there. So if you have any questions after this call, please feel free to ask. And this email is going to show up again a month later on. Next slide, please. Okay, so obviously, we understand that CLARiTI is not the typical multi-site study where, the study starts with the main and coordinating site, and then all the other sites, fall in line with whatever the coordinating site says. All of you are ADRCs that's been, been in existence for many years. And so you have each developed your own processes for how you connect with participants, how you enroll, and how you follow through with getting them through the study. So, the Inclusion Core is not looking to create a uniform approach for all the centers. Our goal is to support you to be very successful with what you already are doing well. So we are looking to you to please let us know how we can best partner with you to support you to be successful. Again, we're continuing to bring up this point of the liaisons that truly, these staff members are provided you to truly help you attain your inclusion goals. As far as compensation goes, again, this is an area that, the Inclusion Core feels strongly that participants and the study partners, should be honored, and payment is just one way that honor is shown, but it is an important way. We do realize though that there might be some differences in how different ADRCs handle this, and we're sensitive to that, but it's going to be important that individuals from under-included communities who oftentimes have to, get out of work, and other engagements, our commitments to be a part of our study, that they be shown very tangible signs that their time, their person, their efforts are valuable to us. So we're going to be encouraging the centers to truly be mindful of that and to compensate the participants and the study and partners accordingly. If your center has provisions also for additional support for travel and lodging and so forth, that would be wonderful and will go a long way towards helping you present as being open to inclusion. The Inclusion Core is in the process of hiring a marketing agency that is going to work with all of us to create those tailored digital materials that are going to help drive recruitment and retention for CLARiTI. More to come on that. Next slide, please. Okay, and then in terms of retention, right, the navigators, as described, are those staff who are going to be housed either in New York or Wisconsin. And again, their role is to support your all core staff and also the participants and the study partners in ways that, again, we are all going to fashion this out together because each ADRC's needs are going to be different. And we want to help you in the areas that you need our help the most. But again, the navigator's role is to truly make sure that any participant who enrolls into CLARiTI stays in CLARiTI until the very end. We mentioned the annual funding that's going to be available to you for community building and engagement efforts. So that is something that counts towards retention efforts. Again, our marketing team is going to work closely with each of the sites. Something that we're looking to better understand, and we're working on a survey that is going to come out and later on, is again to truly understand, the practices of each of the ADRCs, not just in terms of getting persons from under-included groups to enroll into the clinical core, but getting them to enroll into biomarker studies, because that is really what the goal of CLARiTI is. So we're going to be connecting with all of you later on to truly understand what your current practices are, what are some successes that you've seen, and what are those pain points where you're looking for support and assistance in getting them over. And again, more to come on that later on. I think there's one more. Next slide. Oh yes, all right. So something that we really want to impress on all of you on this call is that the inclusion core for CLARiTI sees the success of CLARiTI and also the inclusion core as hinging very heavily on partnerships with your local or cores. So we truly want to get to know the core leadership and staff very well, and to work as co-laborers in this effort. So to begin with, in the coming weeks, you are going to be getting some emails from us to set up onboarding sessions where we get to meet your leadership and your staff and begin to know who is doing what and where. We are going to be present virtually or in person going forward at the fall and spring NAC directors meeting. And the purpose then is to be able to connect and network with all of the all cross staff and PIs. The inclusion core staff are also going to check in with all core staff as every now and then, just to make sure that there is an open line of communication between the all cross staff and the inclusion core team. And I know that this is something that NAC is still trying to work on, but there's been some discussions about members of the inclusion core leadership, being participants, in some ways during the quarterly, I believe, or core steering committee leadership and meetings. But again, that's something that NAC is still trying to work out. The inclusion core currently is compiling a repository of resources and training materials that would support and enhance community engaged research methods and practices for all of the ADRCs. So this is we are going to make available to each of the help you with the work that you are doing. Again, this survey went out, our first survey went out on Monday with a deadline of April 15. So please be on the lookout for that email. We also intend to conduct periodic webinars, maybe say quarterly, and where we are going to meet with the different all cores and provide training, or just a space for us to learn from, to co-learn from each other. What is working at ADRC A is something that ADRC B or C can also learn from. And that way we form a community of learners that support each other in this critical work. And Monica and myself and all members of the Inclusion Core are always going to be available ad hoc as you need for Zoom calls to just talk through any issues, challenges, or also just to hear some of your successes, because those are welcome too, as we move along. All right, I think that's probably the last slide for this section. Yes, back to you, Monica.
Great job, Mano. Thank you very much. And just to wrap it up, Clarity Inclusion FAQs. Next slide, please. So a couple questions you might be wondering about. Number one, how can I reach the Inclusion Core? Well, if you haven't noticed, we've included our email just a couple times in this presentation. And again, please contact us at clarityinclusion@madison.wisc.edu. And if you're wondering or have questions, concerns, or ideas about engagement for participants from underrepresented or underincluded populations, and you want to know who to share it with, please email us at the same email. And just a last request and reminder that NAC has distributed a site survey about inclusion plans earlier this month or this week. And we're hoping that we can get all of or as many surveys as possible by the 15th of April. Please share your thoughts. We want to collaborate with you and learn from you. And we're really looking forward to partnering with you. And to wrap it up, last slide. We just want to say thank you, muchas gracias for taking your time. And if we have time, we'd love to answer any questions or comments.
And in case you missed it, there is our email address again.
There's our email, right? And just to be super subtle, there's our email again. We really are excited to hear from you. And Erin and Hannah, do we have a couple minutes for questions?
We have at least 20 minutes, yes.
Okay, so we're good. Wonderful. So yeah, we were very committed to making sure we had that time. In that case, I think we should start with the questions in the Q&A if they haven't been responded to yet. And I guess we're going to ask for help if we miss any, but I'm going to start with the ones from the good Dr. Crystal Glover over at Rush. And Mano, we can just tag team these as you like. But the first question is, will the community research liaison sit in the OR core at each site or in another group? So again, this CRL position is going to be local to the sites. And in terms of where exactly they're going to sit, we haven't worked through that yet per se. Ozioma, do you want to say more about that? We have a meeting scheduled with well, go ahead. You say what you want to say, then I have another stuff.
Yeah. Great question. Different ADRCs are somewhat a little bit different. For example, in some ADRCs, the inclusion of underrepresented groups are housed in the OR core. But in other ADRCs, there is a different core or even a satellite where those efforts take place. So while in general, the OR core is the core that is responsible for such efforts, there's also, as we all know, some variation across ADRCs. So we don't necessarily want to legislate that, but in principle, the OR core is the core that does most of this work in most ADRCs. So that is as specific as we're going to get with that.
For now. And part of that, yeah. And again, we want to hear from folks at the different sites. And that's part of why getting this survey feedback from folks is so important to help us understand the needs and what's going to make sense at the different sites. And Dr. Glover's next question, which is also a good one, all questions are good. How often will the Inclusion Corps liaison with the OR Corps team? Another great question that I think is a little bit TBA. We're actually, we have met with an OR Corps representative in the last several months, which was super helpful to help us kind of start thinking about these issues and get moving. And we're also working to
them
schedule-
next week.
Yeah, but that's what I was going to say. But we also
Oh.
have a meeting next week, and
Yeah.
and we're not going to be prescriptive about the, the cadence. We have some ideas, but we want to get input from them before and co-decide that before we share that with folks. So more to come on that. I think there was another question. There's a question from Karen Smith from UCSF from looks like MAC. And the CRL is the outreach staff that is supported by CLARiTI
Correct.
budgets. Yes. Yeah. So I believe is it the 49,775 plus fringe? That's right. I think that's right. That's right. That sounds right. Yep. Let's see. And I see Sterling's been trying to triage some of these questions.
It
as
looks
well.
like, yeah. Thank you, Sterling. Appreciate that.
Other questions from folks. I'm going to read a little bit just to try to catch up. Do folks want to speak up and share any additional questions?
I think there is a question here from Cynthia Subco in terms of what type of support should we expect from the CRNs and how is that different than what study staff would provide. So this is one of the things that once we do the onboarding calls with each of the ADRCs is what we're going to be hoping to learn from you. For your own ADRCs, how would you best like the CRNs to partner with you in helping you carry out your mandate at your ADRC? So it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all across all ADRCs, but more to come on that during the onboarding calls.
Yeah, right. But for instance, they could help, support, site staff there, provide, information and whatnot as well. Andrea Okuzaki asked or has a comment as well. Low SES is not synonymous with educational attainment. Do you have any metric for determining SES beyond years of education? Yes, such as the ADI. Right. So we 100% agree with you on that. Absolutely. As a health equity researcher, I absolutely agree. But this is a proxy. So this is just a proxy for SES. And what we do know, and it's greatly guided by the fact that most ADRD observational studies and clinical trials are very highly educated. We know that we're really missing individuals with 12 years or less of education. So this was a readily accessible piece of data across sites. So so we were also thinking about feasibility and scalability. And we agree that more refined measures of socioeconomic status would be much better, and we would love to look at as well. And the NAC now has some of those measures as well that we could look to.
To add to that though, CLARiTI is going to be collecting ADIs, but it's just not a formal part of the inclusion criteria, but those data are being collected.
Yeah. There's another question from Andrea about those sites where primary longitudinal cohort recruitment is completed. What is the purpose of the CRL? Right. So the CRL can also support with engagement, which is really important. For instance, at one site that we were learning from and talking with, there seemed to be a real disconnect in the participant experience of what it meant to go to an ADRC site and kind of the level of personal contact. So maybe this individual at that site could meet the person right on the front curb, kind of be their ambassador and take them from each part of the study experience. And again, this is really going to vary by what sites need. And we will work with sites to make sure that that we fully, leverage and do to the best of our ability a good fit for each site for their needs. Am I missing anything, Mano?
No, but there are a couple of others. One by Krista. Hi, Krista from WashU. Yeah. So Krista, you're asking if there are any specific goals or metrics about the engagement of the inclusion core and the all core. So I think Monica had mentioned this, that we've had a series of meetings with the leadership of the all core steering committee, and we have another meeting scheduled for next Thursday. I want to say the 4th, whenever day that is, to continue to discuss this. There are various forms and shapes this is going to take. But basically, it is something that we and the all core steering committee are going to work out together, because, as you know, the all core steering committee represents all of the all cores. So hopefully they are going to share with us what they feel are going to be the most strategic and meaningful ways for us to have this key engagement and partnership with the all cores. So that is what we have at this point. But also, on the slide we shared, we had some of the examples of what we're currently thinking of now. But in the spirit of partnership, we are going to be listening more than talking. So listening to all of you to see how would you all want the inclusion core to best partner with you to help you be successful. So more to come. Mana, did I cover that well?
Sounds great. That sounds great.
Okay.
And then Dr. Trey Hayden from Sinai, New York City. Hi, Trey. Asked, you mentioned fostering a more personal engagement approach. Can you give an example or two? How is this different from the high touch approach that is almost required for PET and MR studies? So again, I think part of what's so important about CLARiTI is increasing the support and making it, more available more widely across all of the ADRCs. And again, ORCORs and folks at all of these different sites are working very, very hard. And, these positions are meant to support that and provide even more touch, even more engagement, provide more information. And it could take different, different approaches. And again, that community engagement piece, which we think is really important for those who are on the boots on the ground as well, in terms of community partnership, more intensive community partnership and support for community partnership. So it's not just, going and, with nothing in hand, but also really going to come in a spirit of partnership, provide, tangible resources to really engage individuals and the community more fully. I hope that answers the question. Ozioma, am I missing anything?
I think that's great. If I can add one point, is just to say that the community funding that we're making available to you, the 10K, is something that we're strongly going to encourage you to take advantage of. In this spirit of going with something in hand, a gift, because sadly, as scientists, we're used to thinking of the get. We want our data, we want our samples, we want our this and that. But to begin to also actively think of the give. What are we going to give to these communities upfront than just what we're going to get from them.
Thank you, Ozioma. And I see one more comment in the QA from Tracy Smith. You mentioned retention of participants through all parts of CLARiTI. Can you explain what are the different parts? I think what we meant was, well, there are two different parts. So retention in terms of across time, but also engagement in terms of study task completion. So, really trying to increase the engagement, not just, for instance, in the cognitive evaluation, but also biomarker specimen collection, like plasma biomarkers, especially neuroimaging, PET, those kinds of things, since that's so critical for CLARiTI. So if we weren't clear about that, my apologies. That's what we were talking about. But if there's still a question, please let us know. Okay. Next question. Thank you. Next question is from Randolph. I love that people are asking questions. This is so good. Next one from Randolph. Thrilled to see the rural component. Do you have a sense of travel radius and which sites may be best suited for this population? Ooh, what a good question.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
so I feel like this is the component that we need to flesh out the most. You know, we're interested in looking at the RUC and RUCA measures to operationalize rurality. And we've been working with some experts in this area, and it's still developing. But in terms of travel radius, we haven't talked about that in terms of rurality with the rest of the leadership yet. That's a really good question that I think we need to take up in our leadership meetings. And so I think let's put that one on hold, but we recognize that we're going to need to have probably a wide reach. And which sites are best suited. I have some off the top of my head, but I don't want to disenfranchise other sites.
Yeah.
But if you have suggestions, Randolph, why don't you let us know what sites you think would be a good fit for rurality?
There you go.
And just again to say, you know, there are many different dimensions of diversity, right? And we're only touching on 3 here: ethnocultural status, SES, with education as a proxy, and rurality. We recognize there are many more, but we're trying to get started with something meaningful, and then we'll see where we go. Good, Ozioma, to go to the next one?
Awesome. Yes. So Rebecca has a question about the CRL role. If it's going to be acceptable for a site to have more than one person in that role, say 2 part-time personnel, we say yes. Whatever it is that works the best for your center, that is what we would support. So if having 2 part-time staff who carry out different components of inclusion efforts, if that is what your center needs to be the most successful, we would encourage that and support that. And anyway, and also we realize that some centers might elect, maybe they already have somebody who currently is playing that role, but maybe it's not fully funded, and they want to use this fund then to kind of bring that person up to 1 FTE. That is also fine, as long as we again understand that this person's primary focus is to build that liaison, that bridge between the ADRC and CLARiTI and the community in which the ADRC is housed. So we are allowing a lot of flexibility in terms of how each ADRC chooses to position this role. Mana, did that cover?
That was a great response. Yes.
Okay.
So we want to work with the ADRCs to, make sure things fit and work within the ADRC, each ADRC. And I just wanted to know real talk from some of the feedback we've gotten from AmeriCorps folks so far is that, at many AmeriCorps,
I know, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a mouthful, but folks sometimes feel really overwhelmed and, we feel, pressure and don't always feel like they have everything that they need. And we're really hoping that this additional support, it'll just be a plus, right? To support your efforts and hopefully synergize efforts at these AmeriCorps so folks can feel more supported, in all the ways and be more successful in all of their endeavors and really help to ensure that CLARiTI is successful.
Yes, real talk. That's how we do it.
Yeah, real talk. Other questions, comments, concerns? Oh, let's see. So Mike
has a good one.
At BU. Let's see, asking. Due to all the ongoing studies, the informed consent part of the visit is becoming quite lengthy. My concern for underrepresented populations is that you recruit for one study and then they come for their visit and you present them with all of these different informed consent forms that it can be perceived as deceptive. Any tips on how to naturally integrate ICF for CLARiTI into the ADRC? Are people replacing their pet ICF with CLARiTI? So I can't comment on that very last question,
yeah,
Michael, unless
probably
Sterling or Ozioma.
Sterling, yeah.
Yeah, is that a Sterling or a Beth question?
Yeah, I can comment on that, Michael. We are working on a plan where you can generalize the CLARiTI consent form for your local ADRC so that you're not having to present your participants with the choice of 2 different consent forms for studies that are basically identical. And we're also trying to reduce the burden on you as a site. So we don't have a full plan for that yet, but we are working on that. And while I
Right.
have the microphone, I just want to comment and thank Ozioma and Monica for their leadership and their thoughtful work on all of this. This work is so important for all of us, not just to have generalizable science, which is key, but also to serve our participants and to benefit their lives through the work that we do in some small way. So thank you, Dr. Okonkwo and Rivera-Mindt, for what you're doing. Hopefully,
Thank you,
Mike, that
Dr.
answers your question to some degree. We're going to keep talking about how to utilize the CLARiTI protocol to meet more of the needs of the centers rather than being an additional consent form that you have to use.
Yeah, Sterling, this also to me strikes me as a question that we can work with our Community Science Partnership Board on, and or for folks to get input on how to really make this as seamless as possible, and to really address this issue of anybody feeling, you know, deceived in any way or any perceived deception. So I think this is a great question or opportunity for us to even start thinking about topics to bring to our community partners in the future.
Yeah, I think so. It'll be really relevant for the sites, for the P30 sites who now have this 24 ATN requirement per year. Will you have one protocol for that and another for CLARiTI? That might be the right choice for some sites. And other sites, they want to try to minimize the number of consent forms and options so that it becomes less burdensome on your outreach team and also less burdensome on your participants.
I think that was it.
All right. Any last questions? Otherwise, I'll go over the last few announcements and we can end a minute early. Let's see here. Okay, I don't see anything coming in. So I just wanted to mention that there will be a CLARiTI breakout session at the NAC spring meeting in Austin, Texas. So that will be held on Monday, May 6th over the lunch hour. Lunch will be provided for those attending in person. The in-person invite will be extended to CLARiTI site investigators and or core leaders. Anyone could attend virtually, and this isn't meant to be exclusive. It's simply due to the size of the room. So we just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that there will be a virtual component as well. And that agenda will include presentations by the CLARiTI disclosure and inclusion cores with time that will be open for discussion as well. And then there will be a link in the chat to register for that next spring meeting. The invite for the CLARiTI breakout session will come in a few weeks. Next slide, please. And just to let everybody know, to also save the date for June 20th, that will be our next webinar. We're going to take April off, and then May will be the next spring meeting, so we'll meet there. In the meantime, we will be connecting with you via our CLARiTI Connect newsletter, which you have likely received either yesterday or the day before. So this is a newsletter that's distributed by the CLARiTI administrative team at Wisconsin, as well as at NAC. So we'll just give your sites any updates on study progress, operations, news. And then you can always stay in touch with us. You can always contact your designated project coordinator, our general email address there. We'll also get the Inclusion Core email address added to the website, so you all have that. And then the CLARiTI website link at the bottom there as well. So that is all we have for you today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And thanks again to Drs. Okonkwo and Rivera-Mindt. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. See you soon.
Everyone, enjoy
Take
the
care.
rest of your week. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.